The second area of inequality that government is trying to deal with is the idea of housing. Now, the UK government recognises that there is a huge problem in housing, right? It recognises that there are not enough good quality houses for people to live in. And we've seen through the documentaries we've watched, through the videos we've watched, we've seen that that is true, that people living in poverty are living in shocking quality housing, which is actually in many cases making their poverty worse because they are getting sick, so they're not able to get work, they are having to spend money on medication, etc. So this is a huge problem. The UK government has said they're going to focus their housing policy on making sure that existing housing is used more efficiently. So they think the big problem is that there are too many small families living in big council houses, meaning that bigger families have nowhere to go. So maybe there's 2 people living in a house with 4 bedrooms, something like that. So what they've decided to do is they've introduced something called the under-occupancy penalty. Now, it's nearly always referred to by pretty much everyone as the bedroom tax. So that's what we're going to keep calling it, and that's what you're going to see it called online, etc., the bedroom tax. Essentially, what they do is they look at a family who's renting a council house, and then they charge them, essentially, for rooms that they quote-unquote don't need. If they have 1 spare bedroom, their housing benefit will be reduced by 14%. If they have 2 or more, the housing benefit will be reduced by 25%. And the idea is that a small family, 2 or 3 people in a big house will go, well, this is too much, we're going to move to a smaller house, and then that big house will be available for a bigger family. And so the stock of social housing that's supported or subsidised or provided by the government or councils, is used more efficiently. People are in houses that are the quote-unquote right size for them. And individualists say that this policy has been very successful. The number of families affected by the policy has decreased from 660,000 to 449,000, so showing that many families have moved into houses that are appropriate size for them. 20% of the affected claimants said that it motivated them to try and earn more money through employment. Remember, that's what the UK government's all about. It's trying to say, how can we get people to get into employment and earn more money? And the UK government says that it's not just about effectiveness, but about fairness. They say that, hard-working taxpayers should not have to pay for people to have homes provided by the state with spare rooms that they don't need. They say these are the sorts of decisions that people not in social housing have to make, so people in social housing should have to make them. And they point out that the under-occupancy penalty, the bedroom tax, has saved the country around £1 billion since its introduction. But collectivists have pointed out that there is an enormous problem right at the heart of the under-occupancy penalty, which is simply put that there aren't enough houses for people to move into. Because of this government's policy of allowing people to buy their council house after they've lived in it a certain amount of time, a policy called Right to Buy, what's essentially happened is people who've been living in council houses for a long time have bought them, taking them out of the supply. And the majority of council houses that have been bought are smaller council houses, meaning that the only council houses left are bigger ones or ones that are in shocking disrepair. So what's happening is these families are being charged for their extra bedrooms, but there's nowhere for them to go. So the idea that they can just move into a better suited council house to them is a lie. It's failed to make, because this penalty has failed to make much more social housing available. It's shockingly unfair, and it has led to more people being plunged into poverty. According to the government, 60% of those affected by the policy have had to go into debt. 75% have had to cut back on food. And according to a survey carried out by the National Housing Federation, 1 in 7 families across the country have received eviction letters because of the bedroom tax. So what's happening now is these families that are in larger council houses that have lots of spare rooms, well, they have to make a choice. They either have to face a massive cut in their income or move into temporary accommodation like bed and breakfast or Airbnbs and things like that, which actually often cost more than renting the council home. So it's not actually achieving anything for these people. There's nowhere for them to go that is a better suit. there's also a real issue with this idea of spare rooms. You'll notice I keep doing this when I'm talking about spare rooms. And that's because just because you don't have somebody sleeping in it all the time doesn't necessarily make it a spare room. So for example, if you have a disabled child, you're going to need somewhere to put the equipment that you need to support that child. If you are a divorced parent, you're going to need a room for your child to stay when they come and stay with you, which might not be all the time. They might live somewhere else, but you're going to want to have someone to stay rather than just have them on a sofa. In one particular case, a single mother needed a secure panic room to protect her from a violent ex-partner, but the council said, that's a spare room, you're going to have to pay for that. These are all actual cases where the person involved has been penalised. It also, under these rules, mean that children have to share rooms, which might not be appropriate at certain ages. It also might cause all sorts of problems. So the bedroom tax is unfair, and it doesn't work. According to recent research, only around 6% of those affected by the policy have actually moved. It's a ridiculous policy. Essentially, it exists so that the government can take money away from its citizens rather than actually achieving anything else on top of that. And in fact, the Scottish government has passed laws that mean that essentially the bedroom tax doesn't apply in Scotland. It does apply, but the Scottish Parliament basically make up the difference that you get penalised. So the UK government says, we're going to take this money away from you, and the Scottish government says, yes, but we'll give you the same amount back. So in Scotland, the bedroom tax doesn't really happen, and there has been little difference.